Welcome to the Mind of Man podcast. I'm your host, Josh Pennycad. I didn't really have a topic picked out for this week. Didn't really want to get too carried away with it either. So I decided to do an Ask Me Anything or an AMA for those of you that are familiar with the whole acronyms thing. I had a lot of different people reach out and send me some ideas for things like this. A lot of people really like the leadership topic. Among not just military people, but leadership in the workplace and leaders of men. So I know there's some of the questions kicking around for that. A couple of you posted on the Facebook page, messaged me privately. We are live, so I'll try to keep an eye on the chat rooms for both Riverside and YouTube. And if you missed the episode, whatever, it'll be on Saturday morning, tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock, like always. Grab your coffee, sit down, and just listen to me ramble about whatever it is I feel like or whatever it is you want me to talk about. I got some more scheduled podcasts or shows coming up. Stuff that's a little more specific. So stay tuned. I'm looking forward to a few of them and a few more that are a little bit controversial, especially given what's going on in the world right now. So stay tuned for those. Without further ado, I'll just start, taking questions, addressing some of the ones that I got on Facebook first, and feel free to throw whatever you want in the chat. So the first one I got was on the Facebook page, and I'll just read it, and then I'll blather on about, something about it, and we'll go from there. So it says, we as men are told from a young age to be tough. We need to hold the line and take the brunt of what life throws us. So my question to you is, what makes a man tough? His mental resiliency, his physical strength, or wearing princess crown to the mall because his daughter asked him to? Okay. Where does the toughness come into play? Why are we asked to be tough? I think right from the get-go, I'll just answer flatly. I think mental resiliency is what makes you tough. I don't think it is physical strength or prowess. The ability to be mentally tough allows you the ability to become stronger, go to the gym, stay in shape, eat better. If you're not mentally healthy, you're not preparing for any of that stuff. You are not driving yourself. You're not telling yourself that you can do certain things or overcome obstacles. So I think mental resiliency is, I think at the top of the list. It's the pyramid, or I guess, the base of the pyramid, I guess you could say. Without it, nothing else is going to fly. So, I mean, I got really fat, right? And I would say I was just like mentally not well. I was not where I needed to be. I didn't have any focus or drive or ambition for my life. I let alcohol affect a lot of that, or affect judgment, or just make me lazy. If you're not mentally preparing for something, setting goals for yourself, acquiring the tools you need to overcome things in the future, then you're not going to be able to overcome them. You're not going to be able to overcome them mentally. You certainly won't be able to overcome things physically if you're out of shape, or you just haven't maintained a healthy lifestyle. You could be in shape and working out every day and still give yourself heart disease or something, right? So, and I mean, wearing the princess crown to the mall because his daughter asked him to, like, I don't know if that's so much to do with toughness as it is being mentally resilient towards scrutiny, I guess. So putting yourself out there to show, hey, I'm a dad. I will defend my daughter or defend my son. I will do what is asked of me to make them feel comfortable and make them feel like I'm supporting them. I think it's important to flaunt those things, especially in public. It just makes your kids feel safer and feel that they're valued. So, doing those types of things, or doing things that they ask you. I let my daughter paint my nails all the time. I do not care. I think I've showed up on different military exercises with like bright pink toenails and things like that. Like, people look at you wearing, like, man, like, what do you want from me? Like, this is not for you. right? People put on their little judgment hat and then, oh, that doesn't make you tough or whatever it is. And you're like, yeah, but it's not for you. So it's for me and it's for my daughter or for my children to feel supported, to feel like they matter. So from the young age point of view, we need to hold the line, take the brunt of what life throws us. Yeah, like it is taught fairly young. And I actually teach my son a lot of that stuff too. He's 1. And so I do try to teach him to be tough, to get up and suck it up. And, he does a lot of crying. Oh, no, get up, brush yourself off. You did what you did. And then I do not discriminate between my daughter and my son when it comes to that. If anything, my daughter's a lot tougher than he ever will be. So I hope that's a different trend. But I certainly noticed it growing up where boys, especially, were supposed to be very tough. I wasn't allowed to cry about sports. Still shouldn't cry about sports, but I would get really upset. And mostly it was because I was upset with myself. I didn't have any way of like lashing out or dealing with my anger or dealing with my frustration in the sport. So I would just like sit there and get so frustrated. I would just start bawling. And it wasn't until there was some coach that just like sat me down. He's like, suck it up. I'd never really been told that before. And he told me to suck it up and sit there. And I like took myself out of the game and, I sat there sulking. And then I don't think I ever cried again. I think I did once when we lost the Little League National Championship. And it was more just like a defeated, like, oh, I can't believe we lost. They were 1 game away from the Little League World Series, and it would have been the greatest thing ever. But outside of that, I don't think I haven't taken sports as seriously since then. And so, sometimes tough love is not just, hey, toughen up. It's, hey, this isn't the end of the world. Get up, move on. And I think people mistake, being mean to kids or being mean and forcing them to be tough with just, reality. Hey, this is not a big deal. It's not a big deal to fall. That's the whole point. The whole Batman line where it's like, why do we fall? To learn to pick ourselves up. Like, that's the whole point. Is you get hurt, you get up, you try again, you get tougher, you get stronger, you learn for the next time. So I don't think I know it was prevalent as kids. I don't think it's as much now, and I hope it continues in the direction where it's not just all on boys, but toughness is just, a characteristic that we teach our kids. Because I think certain generations are extremely weak. So let's take a look at this other question. What is this one? What do you think men should be teaching the next generation of boys? What will you do different as a father? I kind of just talked about it, I guess. I still hope that we're teaching toughness, but not just to boys. I think just teaching kids to be tough. I think that we've just made society weak as a whole. We've encouraged like behaviors that are weak, that it's not their fault or they shouldn't have to feel pain, I guess, whether it be physical or emotional pain. They should never have to go through that. And so we like over coddle them, I guess, to the point where they've become like a dysfunctional generation. They're going into the workforce as Gen Zs, and they're, oh yeah, somebody's angry with me. Oh, I think I'll just quit my job because I can't handle this. Like, there's so many people that just can't mentally handle stress or problems, and there's just no mental toughness. So I hope that continues. I think I'm going to be teaching a lot more physical health stuff. I think my generation is and was and is extremely unhealthy. A lot of alcohol abuse, a lot of substance abuse. The 80s, probably up till through the 2000s. We kind of just didn't care. It was fast food everywhere. Lots of alcohol, lots of drugs, lifestyles that were inhibiting your healthy body, right? And so we have like massive obesity rates, we have heart disease, we have all these things. So I think monitoring our health and physical lifestyle and encouraging um doing PT every day, but really watching what we eat as well. I'm gonna end up sounding like a hippie or hipster or whatever they are, where it's just, watch what's in your food, all this chemical stuff that you read about now, the FDA that doesn't really pay attention or is bought and paid for by big corporations. They do not care about your health. They will put whatever they want in it, whether it's an addictive substance or a substance that makes it last longer, whatever, it affects your body. So I think the next generation, or what we teach our kids, needs to be, how are we going to take care of ourselves physically and continue this emotional, mental health resiliency, keep making them mentally tough, but also, hey, how can you physically be more functional, be less of a burden to the medical system, learn to eat properly, things like that. And we were taught in school, but maybe not to the extent that we should have been, I guess. What is this? What can we learn from and take away from our parents, and how can you raise a strong, healthy boy in today's environment? I think I just answered that one. Sorry. I think, yeah, it's physical health. I think just fell by the wayside. Mental health, we're now coming back from, but yeah, physical health and proper eating, proper physical activity for kids, especially, getting them off their freaking iPads. That's a problem in our house, is screen time. And so we're really trying to scale that back. It's not that we don't do a lot of physical activity, and I'm talking more about my daughter who's doing all these extracurriculars, but screen time becomes a problem. It becomes a distraction, right? And it takes you away from outdoor activities and healthy lifestyles. So that's something I think parents just really need to monitor. And I think we talked about it on the fatherhood episode, just about protecting kids from online issues and predators on the internet, things like that, or being a smart internet kid, being able to identify threats or identify things that are harmful to you. So the best way to get rid of that is to have way less screen time, more physical activity, I guess. How do you raise an emotionally intelligent boy? Your generation was taught to suck it up. I don't even know if I'm really good at this yet, or if I ever will be. I swallow my emotions all the time. I think emotions are stupid. So, and my mom actually completely disagrees with me. Emotions, I think, are a way to express yourself that is not based in reality. You may be angry, and to show anger, you lash out, or you may be sad, so you cry. Things like that. They're just reactions um, to a uh, what do you call it? They're reactions to a stimuli in the world around you, right? But it isn't the actual thing. So, um, I'm much more of a doer, I guess. I only react in a way that is logical or will um, make my circumstances better. I very rarely use emotion. And I think men in particular should continue that. And I will have a lot of people that disagree with me on that, but it allows you to, we'll just say, perform in the moment. It allows you to make decisions quickly. It allows you to be that leader, especially in your household or with your family and friends. You don't need to react with emotion. And mistakes happen when you react with emotion. They happen in marriages. They happen even like in sports, right? You look at, football. A lot of these penalties that get thrown are just penalties of emotion. And you think about what happens in the world, a murder, right? Well, what happens with murders or homicides? They're crimes of emotion all the time. Like somebody is reacting to something. And so to me, being a healthy emotional boy is essentially bottling those emotions up, but reacting appropriately. You can have them, but as soon as you turn them into something physical, it is jeopardizing what you actually should be doing and how you should be reacting in your environment. Um, I could probably think of a few other examples, but I hope I kind of made sense there. Yeah, I don't. I guess I it's hard to say I don't agree with emotion. It's just something that humans have, but I think there's abilities to hide that emotion, and you can bring it out later when there's not things to happen or things to accomplish or to react to. Um, in the moment, you need to be on your A game. You need to be able to make a decision. Later, women, they like seeing emotion in men. So later, you can be emotional with your spouse. You can show emotion. You can say, "Wow, that was really bad today. That made me really sad. That made me really angry." And then maybe let it all out then. But in the moment, I think it's important to be able to harness those emotions and keep them down. Um, yeah, I hope that answers the question. How do you think you should show your daughter what to look for in a husband as a dad? Well, I hope I'm not gonna get there anytime soon. I think it's being emotionally available to women. So I wonder if this might contradict my last point, but showing emotion, I think, is different than being emotionally available. Men showing emotion, I think, is a sign of weakness for other men. Like if I see it in other men, I think it's a sign of weakness. But like I was saying, you can show that emotion to your spouse and I guess maybe your kids, but I don't think I'd recommend it because you are a support system. You are supposed to be invincible. You are supposed to be, especially as a man and as a dad, you're supposed to be that rock, that like, strong, unwavering presence that protects them. So, I think that's how you show them what to look for is being mentally tough when things are hard, being physically tough so that they feel safe, being financially responsible. And while they might not understand what that means, they do understand what a roof over their head is and what food is. So provisions for your family, I think that will go without saying. I don't think they will sit down with somebody who's just immediately like on the first date, like, "Hey, yeah, can you pay for it?" No, like the guy should be paying. And I'll say this at least on the first date, and then we'll see. But that's something that is it's a gesture to show that you can provide. It's a gesture of provision. It's kind of an old habit that men do, right? It's almost archaic, but we do it to show that we can provide. That's the idea behind it. Um, how you act with your spouse, obviously. So, I mean, if they grow up in a home full of abuse, they're going to find abusive partners. That happens. That is like statistically proven. So, eh, that of course is a crime. I mean, just don't do it. And I mean, you're an evil person if you do. But emotional abuse can look different or being, harsh. And I know I've said on other podcasts how my army side comes out and I can be very harsh with my kids, but with my wife as well. So I think keeping that in check is difficult, especially for certain men, but I would say most men find that part difficult where showing anger towards your spouse or displeasure is reinforcing that it's okay to do that with your kid and then therefore they might find that. So I guess the best advice there is to like if you're going to fight or if you're going to argue and all that stuff and we're not very good at this, but if you're going to do all that, do it with a closed door when the kids aren't around. Find a way to stomach it for later, swallow it, whatever, go for a walk. Don't display it in front of the kids if you're going to lash out. Yeah, like just really avoiding the controversy, and I mean, that has other benefits where you show a united front for your kids as well. That you shouldn't show a divided front. So, that, I guess, that goes without saying. When you close the door and you fight behind closed doors and they're not aware of it, I mean, that's good for a daughter's upbringing of what she's supposed to see in a future husband, but also when you come out of that room, you're presenting a united front. So, how do you show support to your wife if you're not an emotional man? Depends on your love language. Um, I don't even remember where the love languages come from. I can just tell you mine. Mine is acts of kindness. So I give love through acts of kindness, or just acts, I guess. I give love by doing, and I receive it by words of affirmation. So thank you for doing that act of kindness. Like, I'm pretty straightforward that way. And I know women, and my wife in particular, is touch, right? And many women are like that, and it's an emotional reaction, right? It's an emotional, it's a external stimuli that makes them feel loved when you physically interact with them. So I think faking it, women know when you're faking it. So I don't want to give that as an answer, but sometimes it's the only answer. Like, sometimes you just got to suck it up and do it, even if you don't feel like it. And you might never feel like it. For me, I am not a physical person, not at all. Like, I like my bubble. I don't like people coming into my bubble. My daughter even gets in my bubble and I get frustrated with her. I'm like, get out of my freaking bubble. And I use the phrase all the time from Star Wars, and my family hates it. Anytime they're in my space or just like treating me, I feel poorly, or the complaining. I hate complaining. I just tell them, I'm like, hey, I'm a person and my name is Anakin. And they just look at you like, what? And to me, it's just like, I'm not a slave. I'm just a person. Like, you can't treat me this way. This is my bubble. I'm a person. Leave me alone. I think they hate it. I don't care, because I think it just drives home the point that I don't need that kind of interaction. Um, Showing support can come in different ways, though, not just through love language. Um, I think as long as you're performing the acts of kindness, for me, if you're performing the acts of kindness and doing things that are outside of the norm, or supporting your spouse in their endeavors, so whatever goals they have, supporting those goals. And I mean, identifying goals is even hard sometimes, but if you can show them that you're supporting the goals that they have by whatever means, then I think that goes a long way, even if you're not emotional. So a lot of talks we have in our household is about money. And I know I have tons of ambitions and goals for my life. My wife doesn't have as many, but I know she's got some. And so when she comes up with one, or there's something she wants to do, I try to like allow that to happen through my actions or inactions or whatever it needs to be. So, I'll watch the kids as much as I can, or I'll take some extra time off work so I can watch the kids so she can work or save money. Or if she wants to go out with her friends, then okay, yeah, I can manage that. And those are little goals, those are just little things week to week. But if you're supporting, long-term goals and ambitions, and that goes two ways. I know my wife supports a lot of my long-term goals. She doesn't like to talk about them. She hates when I talk about money. She hates when I talk about, like, 20 years from now. But I know she doesn't stop me. I wouldn't say she spends money how I would spend money. We fight about it, but she supports what I'm trying to do. She supports what I'm trying to build, and whatever for our family. So, um, if I can do the same for her, or if you can do the same for your spouse, then supporting long-term goals in a visible way so that they know that you're supporting them, and verbally confirming it to them, verbally supporting them. I think that goes a long way. How do you deal with a highly emotional person? Well, I don't deal well with a highly emotional person because I think emotions are stupid. Um, I guess it depends what you mean by highly emotional, but somebody who reacts out of emotion all the time is how I'd perceive that. I don't know if you can really have an intelligent conversation with them. Um, if all they're ever doing is reacting to stimuli around them and lashing out with emotion or crying out of emotion or just everything is to the extreme, there's not a lot to be said about what types of interactions you can have with them. They're not going to be reasonable, right? So you have to, I suppose, take a lot of slow steps and time to build the confidence with them and build the trust with them that they don't need to react in such strong ways with strong emotions towards certain things in the life, or reassure them that whatever they're reacting to is okay. And this is all to say that there's not an underlying medical condition. If there's something that's clearly extreme like bipolar disorder, then maybe, go see a mental health professional. But if you're just talking people that are used to reacting with emotion instead of logic, I'm not expecting everybody to act with logic all the time. That's something I do because I'm a psycho. But there's a medium there where you can have emotions. That's okay. You can react to a lot of different things. You can even react in the extreme, but you need to be able to do something about it, or you need to be able to listen to others around you when they're telling you, hey, it's gonna be fine. It's okay. Let's just make the next decision. Let's just take this next step, and we'll be fine. So I don't deal well with highly emotional people, especially at work. I don't think there's a place for emotions in the workplace. Not even a little bit. There is work. You do the work. You go home. Nobody wants to work. I don't know anybody in the world that likes work for real. If you say you like work or you want to work, you're a liar. Everybody wants to go do their own thing. If you want to work on a farm for yourself, that okay, call that work. But nobody wants to go to the office or go to a back-breaking labor job and work. That is a lie. So, yeah, that was a little side tangent, but let's see what else we got here. What is this one? I do some weird tick with my tongue every time I don't know what to say. What is one goal you have for your kids? To be 100% financially literate by the time they're 20. And I mean, I will be teaching them at home because I have no faith in the public school system to actually do it. Accounting, sure, you can learn that in school. You can learn a little bit about business, but I'm talking about the stuff that they don't teach you, and they don't teach you on purpose, that I'm slowly learning into my 30s that I wish I knew before. I've learned a lot from my dad. I've learned a lot from my friends that have taken different courses. I've learned a lot myself by taking my own courses, learning about the real world and how it works, learning about the stock market, investments, different portfolios that make sense for your lifestyle, things like that. Financially literate, as in they know what money is, how it works, how it works as a tool. And I think if you can teach them that, it will save them years and years of mental stress, anguish, and hardship for their future family. You don't need to make $1 million. You just need to understand how money is used, how it can be leveraged, how much it's actually worth, and what you do with it. Um, yeah, that's like definitely a number one thing for my kids. I want them to be financially responsible, financially literate, and I think a lot of other things follow that. Like, mental health goes with that. You look at people that have mental health problems. Yeah, money is like still at the top of the list. Like that's never gonna go away. No, money doesn't make you super happy if you're rich. It sure freaking helps. It takes away a lot of mental stresses if you're not impoverished, or you didn't go broke, or your family put away money for you for school or whatever, right? So money is an important thing that people don't take seriously enough. And I don't mean by making it and spending it. I mean understanding how to utilize it, what debt is, what credit is, the different tools for investment, things like that. What is one thing that scares you? Failure of that goal. I'm afraid of failing my kids. Um, or my spouse. I think both, but separately. Different failures, I guess. Failure in a sense that I can't provide or be what I'm supposed to be as a husband, and then subsequently a failure to my kids because of that. But also a failure to my kids because I didn't work hard enough or do the things that they needed me to do to be a father or a supporter or an educator. Um, I try to go to everything. I make it a point to go to every single taekwondo thing that we have. I do that specifically because the whole, show up. It's important to show up. You see all those videos of the kids when their parent shows up. That's probably one of the most important things you can do is show up. Um, yeah, failing my kids in a variety of ways, whether it's showing up financially or provision or teaching them just about the world in a way that they can know enough when they move out of this house and become an adult that they are prepared for people to be hurtful towards them, whether it's spouse, friends, family, coworkers, bosses, whatever. The world sucks, but if you're mentally prepared for it and you're financially prepared for it and you have all these tools and they have that by the time they're 20, then I think I've done a good job. So that's what I'm scared of, is failing at that goal. How did you know you were ready for marriage? Also, when you were ready to be a dad? I've always wanted to be a dad, so I mean that one, I don't know if anybody's ever ready. I think me and my spouse just decided we were going to have kids. We weren't sure if we could. And so we just started trying right away. And there was minor complications, but it was pretty straightforward the first time. So I really didn't have to think about it all that much. Always wanted to be a dad, got married, became a dad. How do you know when you were ready for marriage? I was 100% ready to never get married. And then I met my wife. So, and I think that just tends to happen. Might be one of those weird things of the universe where when you stop trying to look for something, it just happens. And that definitely happened to me. I was like done with dating. I didn't want to date anybody anymore. This is stupid. I could be fine with myself. Like, it's fine. And then I met her like 2 weeks later. And after the first date, I went home and told my dad, I was like, yeah, no, I'm marrying her for sure. So I don't know what it is or what it was necessarily about my wife. I think there was just a variety of things. It was like a when you know, you know. So I don't think I was ever ready for marriage, as opposed to I wasn't ready or I wasn't in that mindset. And then snap, I was. And, I never looked back. Switch over to the Facebook page and see what's in there. I think somebody messaged me one, which is good. Was the role of men as leaders today cool? All I was thinking was the role of men as leaders today. Men used to be the default leader in the home, leading cities, companies, militaries, countries, but now women can play this role too. You mentioned leadership is mostly natural, not taught. So, in today's world, is there still a link between being a leader and being a man, or is leadership now completely independent of gender? Leadership is completely independent of gender, and I 100% disagree with you that men have always done these things. There's thousands of examples of females in history that have led armies. Joan of Arc. We have Margaret Thatcher in recent memory, the Iron Lady, very tough political leader. People like not the Egyptian leader. I want to say Cleopatra, but now now I feel like I'm wrong. There was 2 Egyptian queens, I guess, that were extreme military leaders back in ancient Egypt. I think you're just seeing it more in Western culture because we went through a period of about 100 to 200 years of conservatism, I guess, but biblical conservatism and old school, mentalities of women should be at home. And it was okay because men only had to work one job. So that's a big change that's happened since then. But it wasn't uncommon for women to lead in different aspects of military politics or other communities. And I think it's just Western culture, really. There's lots of other cultures in the world where women are the dominant gender in the workforce and in leadership. There's an island off of New Zealand, and no, I can't remember it, and I'm going to kick myself over it. But basically, it's a matriarchy. yeah, the women run the entire colony. They are the ones that run everything. So I don't think gender has anything to do with it. I think circumstance and culture had a lot to do with it. But if we're just talking Western culture, I'll just read it. I'll read it again as such. So if we're just talking about Western culture and just about the last 100 to 200 years. So again, you mentioned leadership is mostly natural, not taught. So in today's world, is there a link between being a leader and being a man, or is leadership now completely independent of gender? Um, is there a leadership between, or sorry, is there a link between leadership and men? I want to say yes, innately, yes, biologically, yes, because we're, uh, yeah, bigger, more powerful, stronger, that kind of thing, as physical beings. When it when literal push comes to shove, and I want your food, I'm going to take your food. And we've talked about this on other podcasts. I'm going to kill your monkeys, and I'm going to take all your women, and I'm going to take all your food, and that's what men have the capability to do, and women cannot stop them in the grand scheme of things in a very overgeneralized way. So if you want to look at it that way, yeah, innately men can be, we'll quote it, leaders, but really just the dominance. Now in the modern day, leadership and what does that look like, I don't think gender has anything to do with it. There's dominant personalities in certain women that have abilities to completely command men, um whether it's in politics, the workforce. And I think a lot of it has to do in North America specifically, but a lot of it has to do with women becoming more educated and now becoming more educated than men, especially in the world of politics and law, business, things like that. And yeah, and I've said it before, there's a lot of tough women in the world of government and politics. And I think you have, and going back to the toughness question, you have to be extremely tough to be in that world. And being a leader in one of those areas is just kind of like this icing on the cake. And so, yeah, I don't think gender really has that much to do with it, but I see what you mean by your question. I just disagree with historically, men being dominant. Yeah, dominant in terms of number of men, but there's no shortage of women in history that have led cities, companies, militaries, countries. That we can open books on it, right? Um, I thought I had one more question here. Maybe I missed it. 38 minutes. That's not bad. Let's see if I can find one more on the list. Nope, I don't think so. Well, that was short and sweet, and I actually kind of like doing that kind of stuff. It was very men focused, so I appreciate sticking to the brand. But I mean, I'm open to talking about anything, whatever's going on in the world. I like talking about some of the modern wars going on. Things in politics, certain things I can and can't talk about just due to the nature of my work. But there's certain things I have no problem talking about. I do bold predictions on a lot of my on my other show, right, or on my general feed with guests. So maybe I'll just bold predict something myself. I used to do these on Facebook with regards to geopolitics, and I follow a lot of Peter Zion, um, and Jordan Peterson, and I try to see what they're seeing in the world and then predict outcomes of the world. And Peter Zion's very good at this because he's a geopolitician. He understands geology, he understands business, he understands trade, and populations and their declines and things like that. So he's actively predicting the fall of China. And so on that note, I tend to agree with them. But here's my bold-ish prediction and why. Right now, you see a war going on in Ukraine through Russia. There's a number of different pieces playing out, and I'll try to touch on 3 or 4 of them, but my prediction is that we will, in my lifetime, see World War III. And I know that's not like ice-breaking, groundbreaking news because I think a lot of people are starting to think that way. Um, Other people that deny, "Oh, that can never happen again," I think you're crazy. If you look at World War II, the buildup to World War II spanned almost a decade, and I would say right now we're in the infant stages of World War III. And here's why. Besides what is going on in Eastern Europe, so the aggression of Russia, the encroachment towards Russia and from NATO, essentially. So we've essentially provoked it over the last 50 years. You have China as a big player. You have other Western countries as big players, but you also have Africa and the rush for resources, cobalt, lithium, all the things we need to power a, we'll quote, green economy, even though it's not so green when you have child slave labor getting you all that stuff in the Congo. We just saw three countries, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, break away from essentially their countries. They staged a coup, more or less kicked the French out that were occupying it. And now the French have a decision on whether or not they go in and kick everybody's ass, or the African Union gets involved, which is Nigeria, and a bunch of other countries, whether they go in and kind of make peace. You have other Russian-backed actors kind of in the region, have operating in the region for some time. It's a resource play. So more or less, you have North Africa, which is on the verge of various civil wars. They've already staged a coup. It could involve a NATO country and subsequently a non-NATO country or Russian-backed militaries or mercenaries. Okay, so that's one area. Africa is not just some giant continent that nobody wants. There's a lot of stuff there in terms of minerals and big actors and players there in terms of oil. The other thing going on is the BRICS nations. The BRICS nations are the ones that are trying to subvert the US dollar when it comes to paying for oil. So they are trying to find a way to buy oil not using the US dollar. And right now, the Russians want to use a ruble, the Chinese want to use a yen, and nobody can really agree within BRICS itself on which currency can be used. They're talking about crypto, all different things. So Peter Zion, it does not necessarily think anything's ever going to come of it. However, it doesn't mean they're not trying. And the fact that there are so many countries involved with trying to essentially subvert and push the US dollar down and push it out of oil is telling of what they intend to do in the future. One of those countries is China, as I mentioned, and they are on the verge of economic collapse. Again, according to Peter Zion, I'll just keep referencing him because he's my favorite geopolitician. He's my favorite, dude who talks about geopolitics. They don't have enough workforce. They're not producing enough stuff. They import way too much stuff to actually, afford anything and turn it into something and sell it back on the free market. They are essentially allied with Russia, which isn't boding very well for anybody that is. So the bigger question in terms of a war is, do they lash out at Taiwan, who is backed by the United States? My answer is yes. A lot of people say no, they would never do it. I think they will, and for a couple reasons. One, if you push an animal into a corner, it has nothing else to do. And I think they know it. I think they know that their economy is suffering to the point of no return. I think that is kind of like a last ditch effort where they push out from China into Taiwan. They bomb. Is it Taiwan Semiconductor, one of the most profitable semiconductor factories in the world? Taking that rate offline from the S&P 500, you can't buy it anymore, things like that. That's just the start. And then you end up with the Pacific Navy of the US involved. Countries like Japan that have the capability to just go in and launch a bunch of missiles from the sea. And now you're talking about an invasion of China via NATO countries. So there's a lot of different things going on in the world, and it's not just Ukraine and Russia. If you look at Poland is freaking out because of what Russia is doing in Ukraine. They believe that Russia is winning, essentially. A lot of people do believe Russia is winning. Western media will tell you that Ukraine is winning, but they're running out of people. Um, Unfortunately, the Ukrainian population is suffering to an extent that they will not have enough of a population, even if they were to win a war, to sustain a country again. So there's all kinds of different things happening with how Ukraine could be divided up. Poland could go marching back into Western Ukraine and take it for themselves as a NATO country, or Russia could win that war and then Poland gets too freaked out and just marches in anyway without support of NATO. They have been flexing their new toys and military in massive parades in Poland. They are prepared to fight. And so I think if you provoke a country like that who's been waiting and waiting and waiting and preparing, you might just see them get involved. Another big thing that happened this week was NATO. We'll say NATO. Some people backed by NATO with NATO stuff bombed Crimea, Russia-controlled Crimea. Take that for what you will. Russia can interpret that however they want. I think if NATO is doing that at this point, they're not as worried about Russia, but Russia literally has the the proverbial nuke codes, but the literal nuke codes. And I think that's the one thing that keeps everybody still worried is if Putin is willing to push the big red button. I think he totally would. That's just my opinion, but I think that's what the rest of NATO is worried about as well. So I think they're still treading very carefully. Anyway, those are just a few reasons why I think we're still headed for World War III. And if you just go look at the list of alliances and who supports who and who's bordering who and who supports who economically, there's so many different things going on. I highly recommend listening to Peter Zeihan. I listen to him every day. He updates me every day on what's going on in the world. Throw your news out the window. It's garbage. Listen to him. Find some other resources, but listen to him first. And then you'll sit there and you go, the world's not as safe as I thought it was. We are not as safe as we thought we were in North America. There's a lot of bad things going on that could draw a number of different things, people, countries, and other things into a global scale conflict. So that is my opinion on the matter. If there's other stuff like that you guys ever want to pick my brain about, again, I'm an open book on a lot of these topics. 48 minutes, that's not bad. I think we did pretty good today. I hope to have some more specific topics for you guys as we get going through the next couple months. It's busy. It's really busy right now at work and with family at school and all that stuff starting up. So you might see more of these like off the cuff live feeds and AMAs, but I'll try to have more of the specific contact with some more guests for you guys. There's a couple scheduled, so hopefully I'll get some of those out to you November, December. As always, click on as much stuff as you possibly can on Facebook, on Twitter, on Spotify, and YouTube. It helps the brand. I can say now, taking requests for advertising. I will read your advertisements, or if you have pre-recorded advertisements, I can put them on. Fees can be negotiated with me directly. I have talked with some people, so you may start seeing 20-second ads just that I read out to help just support me and support the software that I use and, building the brand however I think I need to build it. And depends how far I ever want to go with it. Still a hobby, still fun. Just seeing where it goes. As always, the mind of man. I don't know. Am I tired? It's Friday. Pretty good week. Yeah, I'm tired, but it was a good week. So hopefully the rest of your week goes really well. I'm going to watch some fantasy football tomorrow. Not real football. I only care about fantasy. And maybe I'll talk about football one day and the addictions of fantasy football. So have a great evening, and we'll talk to you guys next week.